Hi, folks. Dave Schmidt here. Hey, it's the morning of March 25th. Just want to say thank you. Thank you that you're in tune for another week. Well, this week I want to do something. I want to talk about something I haven't discussed for months. And that's the actual RV itself. You know, that was the thing that brought all of us together here, is because we either had purchased dinar or dong, and we were hoping for this RV to take place. And about a year ago, that's all I talked about, because that's what was on the plate, what was on the table. And as I mentioned last week, this has been a journey of faith for all of us, where we've been discovering what really is unfolding, where the real sources of the money come from, and how things are really taking place. So I want to do that, but before so, let me just go into a couple administrative announcements. First of all, thank you so much for the people in Laverne, Minnesota, for the workshop that we had there last week. Now, Laverne is really a wonderful place. It's a small little farming community in the very southwest corner of the state of Minnesota. It only has around 4,500 people there in the town. And there's this one wonderful gentleman who was our host, Lauren Forrest. Lauren, Charla, and I, and everybody else just want to say thank you so much for all the hard work that you did, for hosting us there and bringing the people together, finding the place, finding the facility, and everything, how it all turned out. You know, remember, this is a small community of around 4,500 people, and Lauren had around 50 people show up for this workshop. Now, we had others that were there also. A number had come from the Tri-Cities area, and out of that, they are working on having another hosted workshop as well. So if that's something that you're interested in doing, here's what I need to have. You need to do basically my groundwork for me. Find a facility, be able to know that I'm going to have enough people that's going to come together to pay for the event. Now, normally once I post it, there's always a small number of people that will come, to that community. But I need to have around 35 full-paying people for this to be where I'm not going to lose money, and also I can make enough money to pay my bills. So that's kind of the situation that is there. So, other than that, we don't have any workshops scheduled for the immediate future, because Charla and I, we've been in discussion again with the ambassador, and we will be making another trip to meet him in the very near future. So in some ways, it's kind of giving us a little bit of a break as well. And the other thing that I had mentioned, it's allowing me to take some time to spend on writing the book that I'm going to write. I've known this for years. It was something that I was supposed to do, and my job is to just tell the story. What I'm doing, I'm telling the story of contrasting what is called the reported world, the world that is reported to us, that we receive from our media, from our finance, from our government, from our education, and the entertainment industry, and some others, and the list goes on. That's what's always been reported to us, that in contrast to the shadow world. The world that's in the shadow of these shadow controllers that we call the cabal, and how they really run and control everything that goes on. And the major tool of their power is money, and the major way that they carry out it is through secrecy and keeping us in fear. Now, that's the gist of the book. Not telling you the title. I don't get to do that yet. I've been told to kind of keep that quiet. But those are the administrative announcements. Now, what is it about this whole RV situation? I got involved in this about 3.5 years ago when I was working with another organization, and I had the opportunity to meet with a gentleman who had what was one of those historic bonds. And I met with him, myself and a few others, we met with him in the lobby in a bank in Vancouver, British Columbia. And he pulled out and he showed to me a $30 million 1936 series Federal Reserve bond. And I realized at that point, this is for real. Things I had been reading about what is happening, developing, Nasara, etc. So that got myself interested there and coming along the way. And I'd heard about the dinar stuff, but I never really actually purchased any for myself, because in the back of my mind, I was always saying, who's going to pay for this? Somebody's got to come up with this money. And then it was about 2 years ago, somebody had introduced to me the concept of the oil credits that Iraq was going to have with China. And I thought, well, that makes sense. I guess I could start out with $100 or $200 and go and test it out and see how it works. And so I ventured into it. I purchased my dinar and I just started doing my research. One of the things that's beneficial from having been a former state senator is that I had access to information that most people don't have. It's not that the information isn't out there, it's just that I know who they are. It was through the networking that had developed over a number of years of being in the legislature. You develop this networking to get information from people. So I started doing my homework and I realized what was coming about. And like so many, I was believing that yes, it was going to happen, and it was going to happen very, very quickly, about all the reports that were coming to us from the Dinar Guru blog writers. But in the back of my mind, I had always asked the question again, who's going to pay for it? And then it was about a year ago, I had been involved with a specific group that they were putting together a private transaction, and I did my work, I did my research, I checked everything out, and I asked the one key question from the person who was setting this up. And I said, who's going to pay for this? Is it the Dragon family that is going to pay for this? Because that's the only place on this earth that kind of money exists. And they said yes. And so I trusted that, just as you have trusted the people that you have followed, and I've trusted the people that I have followed, because you do what you can. It's called the trust and verify situation. Well, all the way along, though, I had always said that for this to happen, somebody's going to pay for all this. When I first started in this about 2 years ago, it seemed very reasonable because there wasn't all that much that was out there, and there didn't seem to be all these different private groups. But through the course of the last maybe 8 months to a year, after that period of time 2 years ago, I began to realize there was a lot of dinar out there. There was dinar that I began to find that was 50 trillion, 100 trillion, turned into 200 and over to 300 trillion dinar that just me, was aware of, either because of contacts that I had developed or reports that had come to me. And now these blog writers were saying, well, I was going to start around $3.50 to $4 for dinar, and then it moved up to 8, and to 12, and to 16, and to 25, and to 32, and to 36, and to 38. And I began to realize, this is ludicrous. This math just doesn't add up. It just doesn't add up. Even if it was 4 and there's 300 trillion dinar out there, that means it would take 1.2 quadrillion US dollars just to do an RV. And I thought, this just doesn't make sense. Because what happens is, quite often people get so caught up into the wanting of it, so desirous of it, that they create an illusion and they don't stop to come back to some reality of the facts of what does it logistically take to get this done. At that point in time, I have been saying the only place that this kind of money exists is with the Dragon family. You know, the total combined gross domestic product of the United States for a full year on an annual basis is only around $17 trillion. So now you're talking how many times that just for an RV? And where's Iraq going to come up with this money to do this? And why would they even do that? Why would Iraq, let's even scale way back. Why would Iraq pay trillions of dollars just to buy its currency back? What is it to their financial benefit? Almost none. So there's no reason for them to do that. Now, let's take a step back to the Chinese oil credits. That did sound very reasonable for a period of time, until it began to be reported that when oil was at about $100 a barrel, as it was about 3 to 4 months ago, they were saying that the total value of the oil in the ground in Iraq is $20 trillion. So how is $20 trillion of oil going to pay for 100, 200, 300 trillion dollars of an RV? And why would they pay that out? What is to their benefit? Is their currency actually worth that much money? That's when oil was at $100 a barrel. And now it's down to less than half of that. So where is this $10 trillion going to pay for all that? You see, the math doesn't add up. It's plain and simple. But yet people continue to report that it's going to happen. It's going to be at 3.5 and 4. And yet they don't want to look into the practical logistics, the dollar value, the math of how all this is going to pan out. So that's why I have been saying for well over a year and a half, the only place that this kind of money exists on this planet is with the Red Dragon family. It does not exist anywhere else. So that way, whatever you're reading on any of the other writers from the Dinar Guru blog sites or any of the other people who have put together private transactions, if they can't quantify and tell you where this money's going to come from, then they're not giving you the full scale. They're not giving you the full scoop, and they're not telling you the truth. And there's usually a couple of reasons for that. Number one is some of these guru writers are just plain flat out former convicted felons. They're criminals. And they're reporting to you and they're taking advantage of that is what they're doing. Second, some of them are believing their sources and they truly trust their sources, but when they keep reporting over and over again that it's going to happen tomorrow, next week, the following week, in a couple of weeks, and this has been going on for 2 years, and they're saying they're pretty certain it's going to happen, and I'm not even going to go into one guy how many times he said it's 99.9% certain it's going to happen tomorrow, and we got and all of the folks are lined up, all the workers are at the call centers, and your 800 number is on its way, and it's been going on for a couple of years and it never happens. That tells you about the reliability and of their sources. So either their sources are crazy and lying to them, or their sources are deliberately misleading. Now, the third reason why some of the people will continue to report this is because they're living in what I call an illusion. They are so desperate for the money for various reasons. Some of them have fines to pay that are so exorbitant they can't even begin to think about it. Or some of them are so far in debt, it's the only hope for them to be able to relieve that fear of what would happen if they can't come up with this money, and they're going to have to either file bankruptcy, etc., and stuff like that. So they put themselves into a desperate situation, and they have such a desperate need for the money that the thought of it not happening becomes very painful, very serious to them. So they keep believing the illusion because outside of it, life isn't very good. And they see this as a probability. But what happens is the illusion blinds us to the practical, logistical reality of how it would be to carry it out. See, the illusion blinds us to the fact that this money doesn't exist and who else is going to pay for it. The illusion blinds us to the fact of what would be the outcome of this type of a scenario. Now, it was July of last year that I was contacted by the ambassador of the Red Dragon family, and I don't need to go into all the details of that. If you've been following the history with me, I talk with the ambassador 3 to 4 times a week. Charla and I have made 2 trips to China, 1 to Europe. We've met with the ambassador. We've met with the Red Dragon and the other senior family members. We have been there. We're well aware of who they are, what is going on, and we understand how they work and how they operate. They work in a very deliberate, very slow, step-by-step manner. They do not rush into anything, and they are very, very patient. They do not move by our demands and our wants and our calling out, take care of the world, save me. And they have been sending a very, very clear message. It's not the family's responsibility to save humanity. It's they will step up to help free humanity and release funds as humanity is ready for it. But if we live in a world of fear, of thinking that all these problems are going to develop if we don't have this money, then we keep ourselves there, is what we do. And that's another whole story about how the energy behind our thoughts and our intentions is what creates the world that we experience. And I teach that in the workshops that is there. But this RV, so where is it really going to happen? Now let me take another step back. Some of you may be involved with private exchanges, and they have some private sources. And you know what? There may be a few of those private exchanges that just might pan out because of the fact that they do have some contracts with money that will be filtered down through various sources. But here's what I'm going to say is I wouldn't count on it. They have to get the money somewhere. And all of that money still traces back to it coming from the family. Now, let me give you another little bit of a history. There was a point in time that the family was going to fund the RV. In fact, they did put it into place, and they did release the funds. It was on May 17th of 2013 that the elders had made a decision to go ahead and fund the RV. And they had placed the funds in the banks, being ready to release them. And 2 days later, the cabal attempted to kill the ambassador through cyanide poisoning. And when that happened, they shut it down. The ambassador has shared there has always been some of the elders that have always been in favor of funding the RV. While there are others are saying we can't do it yet because it's not ready to be released and it's not safe. Now, I've been telling you there are 3 primary reasons why, and I've been saying this for months, of why it isn't happening yet. Number 1 is the family is not going to release funds that will get into the hands of the cabal, and you're talking trillions and trillions of dollars that will only re-empower them and make them stronger than ever before. They aren't going to do that. Number 2, they are not going to create a new super wealthy 1% of people who become overnight millionaires when some of them don't even know how to balance their checkbook. That isn't going to happen. Number 3, if money like that was released, trillions and trillions of dollars was released into the global economy, it would create a hyperinflation that would totally expand the haves versus the have-nots and only leave more people in poverty. They are not going to release funds through this RV process until they are convinced that those things are basically in control. Does that mean this is not going to happen? Not at all. The information that I receive and what my personal opinion, I believe, it is going to happen. But just know it's not going to happen as what the dinar gurus are reporting to you. Don't expect that you're going to be able to waltz into a bank, turn over your $25 million of 25K dinars, and you're going to become an instant millionaire. That won't happen. Why? Because they're going to do background and security checks on you. Because, see, if they did that, then all you've done now is funded drug dealers and criminals, along with a couple million nice people. But they're not going to fund criminals, drug dealers, and cabal. So there has to be a controlled mechanism for these funds to be released. So when anybody's telling you you may be in the bank next week, you noticed what's their batting average? And they've been saying that for over 2 years. It's 0, folks. And it will continue to be 0 with that kind of a report. It isn't going to happen that way. Now, these private contracts, there's a couple of them that are very good. Don't ask me who. I'm not going to tell you that. But, in the Dinar Gurus blog sites, if that's where you get your information, or from the private group that you're involved with, there's only a very, very small percentage of them that are being reported and that are known. There's 200 to 300 private contract groups out there that are never talked about in the Dinar Guru land. Never. Where are they getting their money? You see, when you look at that type of a volume, that type of a money, it isn't going to happen in that manner. People ask me, well, how is it you? Why you? Why did you get in touch with the family and the source of the funds? I don't know. You have to ask them because they contacted me. They did tell me that they had been watching every one of my newsletters, all of my videos. They had thoroughly done a background investigation on me. They knew more about me than I knew about me. They even tell me, I can tell you what your girlfriend was in grade school. Her name. So that list just goes on and on. So that's where I'm at. But I have always said, be patient. Never give your dinar over to anybody. Always physically keep it in your own possession. Don't think that these these groups, the groups that are out there, don't think that they're going to happen. Don't expect that to happen. This is a process that's very deliberate, very slow, and I absolutely believe it's going to happen. But you ask me, I can't tell you. Why? Because it's a chess game. The family's very patient, very deliberate. They make a move. They wait and see how the cabal is going to move. What is their counter move going to be? And sometimes it might take a couple days or even a couple months before they make a counter move. And then the family makes their move. And that's why this is a constantly changing scenario. And none of this is etched in stone. Now, if you want to believe what the guru writers are telling you, well, that's your choice. You have the choice to do whatever it is that you want to do. But I absolutely believe that it will happen when the time is right, and it's going to be in a controlled, deliberate, patient, safe process logistically. And those funds, the only place that they come from the family, because that kind of money does not exist anywhere else. So yes, I do believe it is going to happen. And it requires patience on our part, a step-by-step process on our part. And it's what I talked about last week. It's the ability to continue to have faith, to believe that. Because, see, we are the ones, in some ways, that are assisting this process in coming about. So I hope that's been kind of a helpful recap this week. I'll talk about that in tonight's radio program, and I would love to have you call in. Let's call in. Let's discuss this. Because it's a 2-hour program, folks, okay? I don't like necessarily me talking the whole 2 hours. I love it when you call in. You bring up an issue. It spurs on a conversation, and then it allows me to discuss and to expand on that to be helpful for all the listeners, okay? Love all of you. And thank you so much for always joining me every week and being patient through all of this. This is a great process and procedure, and things are changing. Thank you very much. Okay, bye-bye.